Hello, I'm Mr. Bob, and welcome to my Algebra 1 review series. This video covers Chapter 1, Section 6, titled Multiplying and Dividing Real Numbers. By the end of this video, you will have reviewed methods for multiplying real numbers and dividing real numbers. Along the way, you'll be reviewing multiplying numbers, evaluating expressions, simplifying exponential expressions, dividing numbers, dividing using the reciprocal. Additionally, you will review a real-world problem with real number substitution, division, parentheses, and multiplication. If you'd like me to cover any of these topics in greater detail, please leave your request in the comment section below. Please subscribe to this channel and leave a like if you find it to be helpful. Thank you. Okay, before we get started into this review, we're going to look at some definitions. Multiplicative inverse. The multiplicative inverse is a non-zero rational number. A divided by B is equal to B divided by A. Zero does not have a reciprocal. Dividing by zero is undefined. So what they're saying there, if you have a fraction or whatever the number is, it could be an integer, the reciprocal of it is 1 over that number, or the inverse, right? That's what they call it, the multiplicative inverse. A over B would be B over A is the multiplicative inverse. The number 1, what is the multiplicative inverse of the number 3? Well, it's 3 over 1 is the number, so 1 over 3 would be the multiplicative inverse. A reciprocal. The reciprocal is a number that is the same as its multiplicative inverse. The multiplicative inverse and reciprocal are the same. Okay, objective 1A, multiplying real numbers. The product of a number and 1 is the original number. It does not matter if the original number is positive or negative. The product of 0 and a number is 0. The product of -1 and a number is the opposite of the original number. So here they are defined right here, looking at them, these properties. Identity property of multiplication. It says that for every real number n, 1 times n is equal to n. So multiplying any number by 1 does not change it. How about in examples? 1 times 5 is equal to 5. 1 times -5, the quantity -5, is -5. How about the multiplication property of 0? For every real number n multiplied by 0, or n times 0, is equal to 0. Let's look at an example. 35 times 0 is 35, and -35 times 0 is also 0. Multiplication property of -1. For every real number n, -1 times n is equal to -n, or -n. Example, -1 times 5 is equal to -5. And -1 times the quantity, -5, is equal to 5. Okay, continuing on. From the examples for the properties above, you can see a pattern for multiplying positive and negative numbers. Multiplying numbers with the same sign. So right here it shows it. 1 times 5 is equal to 5. Okay, now here you can say -1 times -5 is equal to 5. So if the numbers have the same sign, when you multiply them, it's always a positive number. How about this? Multiplying numbers with different signs. 1 times the quantity -5. 1 times -5 is -5. And -1 times 5 is -5. So when you multiply by the one negative, it ends up basically inverting it, right? Or giving us the opposite. Positive times a negative is a negative. A negative times a positive is a negative. How about this pattern holds true when multiplying by numbers other than 0 and -1. So here's another rule. Multiplying numbers with the same sign. The product of two positive numbers or two negative numbers is positive. So 5 times 2 is 10. It's positive 10. And -5 times -2 is 10. So when the signs are the same, it's always a positive result. Multiplying numbers with different signs. Doesn't matter what the numbers are. If they have different signs, the product of a number and a negative number or a negative number and a positive number is negative. In the example, 3 times negative 6 is negative 18, or negative 3 times 6 is negative 18. Okay, example 1, multiplying numbers. Simplify each expression. Problem A, negative 9 times the quantity negative 4 equals 36. So the product of two negative numbers is positive. And then the second one here, problem B, 5 times the quantity negative 2/3 is equal to negative 10/3, because the 5 and the 2 multiply, right? You had to do that. 5 times 2 is negative 10 over 3. So the product of a positive number and a negative number is negative. And we're going to write this as negative 3 1/3. Okay. So what we're doing then is we're writing negative 10/3 as a mixed number. Okay. Okay, example 1, here we are to check your understanding. Simplify each expression, and you know what I like you to do is pause the video and try these out on your own. And then when you come back, we'll do them together. So go ahead and I'll wait. Okay, now that I'm sure you're back and you've all jumped on these and worked on them. So let's look at A. It says simplify each expression. A is 4 times the quantity negative 6. Well, 4 times 6 is what? Right? 4 times 6 is equal to 24. And there's a negative sign on the negative 6, so it ends up being negative 24. How about B? Negative times a negative, we know, in fact, it's better to almost look at the signs right away, and you know that your answer is going to be positive or negative right away. So 5 times 10, 5 times 10 is equal to 50. And the answer is going to be positive, right? Positive, negative times a negative is a positive. How about C? 4.9 times negative 8. And well, I'm going to just say 8. And they're both negative, so it's going to be a positive number. And that equals what? 39.2 positive. Okay? And how about D? Negative 2/3 times 3/4. So we have a negative and a positive, so we're going to have a negative answer. And 2 times 6, 2 times 3 is 6, divided by 4 times 3 is 12. And that equals what? That equals 6 over 12 is, and it is a negative number, so I might as well put it in right now. I'll put the negative here, and I would put negative 1/2, because we can factor a 6 out of both of those. Okay? Okay, example 2, evaluating expressions. You could evaluate expressions involving multiplication. To simplify expressions with 3 or more negative numbers, you must be careful to account for all the negative signs as you do your multiplication. And that kind of goes with what I said in the last slide, that you should look at your negatives and kind of get an idea right away if it's going to be a positive or a negative answer when I'm all done. So let's try it. Evaluate minus 2xy for x equals negative 20. Right here, x equals negative 20 and y equals negative 3. So first thing we're going to do is write the equation down, and we'll go ahead and the equation written down is negative 2xy. And then I'm going to expand it by putting in the substitution. So it's negative 2 times x equals negative 20. Negative 20 times the quantity. Remember, we use the braces to replace the whole variable. That way you know you get it all correct. Negative 3. Put a negative 3 in here. So it's negative 2 times negative 20 times negative 3. Well, I see 3 negative signs, so that means it's going to be it's an odd number of signs. It means it's going to be a negative number when we're done. And when you do that, you get 2 times 20 is 40. 40 times 3 is 120. The answer then is negative 120. So you substitute your 20 and your negative 3, then start multiplying and making sure you keep track of your negative signs. Okay, example 2, check your understanding. Evaluate each expression for C equals negative 8 and D equals negative 7. So I'm going to let you pause the video and try these out on your own. And when you come back, we'll work them together. Okay, I'm assuming you've done that. So let's give these a look. So we have problem A. So the first thing it says, it's negative, right? The quantity. Okay, and I'm going to draw big on it, like the quantity, everything here. And inside, I'm going to change this to a different set of parentheses. This paren times this paren. And in the first paren here, I'm going to change this to yellow. We're getting all colorful this time. We're going to have a -8, -8, and a -7. Okay, so what this is showing you here is that we have a negative on the quantity. That's these two red parens. That means the whole minus everything that's inside. Okay, so now we're going to multiply. And what do we have? We have -8 times -7. So that is what? That's 56. And it's negative. So the answer is -56. So let's do this again. I'll go with red. So this time we're going to go, well, I'm going to go straight to green here. So this one says -2 times -3 times the quantity. Oh, here's where I could have done that. I'll switch it up a little bit. Now in here, I'm going to do these. See, these are individuals, because they are inside this parentheses. So I'm separating them. So the first one's C, which is -8. Going back to yellow. Oh, going back to yellow, I said. Come on, yellow. There it is. -8 and -7. So we're going to multiply all of these together. Everything's being multiplied. How many negative signs are there? There are 4 negative signs. So that means the answer is going to be positive. And we go to the innermost parentheses first, right? So you're going to get I'll keep it yellow, -2 times -3 times 8 times 7, two negative signs is positive, is 56. So we've cleared out this set of these parens, and now we're left with this one set here. So now we have a -2 times -3 times 56. How many negative signs are there? There are 2. We have one right here. Where'd I go? We have one right here and one right here. So that's going to be positive. So what is the answer when you take 6? We'll go back to yellow. Where'd yellow go? Right there. 6 times 56 is equal to what? 6 times 50 is equal to 300. Plus 6 times 6 is 36. Equals 336. And it's all positive. 336 positive. Okay, so now let's go to this one here. We have C times, well, let's see, I'll go with this red right here. Let's try and see how this works. So it's yellow. Watch, I'll do C times, put parentheses here, times negative, it's negative D, right? So I'm going to put D as green, just to make colors. And back to the red. Come on. There we go. That's red there and red out here, right? So it's C times -D. And C we know is what? It could be, and I also could put parentheses around this if I wanted to, because it's going to be substituted into. So it's, where to go? Is -8. So it's -8 times negative whatever's in for D, and D is -7. So these are 2 negatives here, which gives us a positive, and one out here gives us a negative. So the answer is 56 is equal to 56. And how many negatives do we have? 3 negatives. So it's -56. And I'm just showing you these parentheses to let you know that something's going to go on inside here, right? And to keep set this, like this negative sign is, you don't say whatever the number was, you make it negative. You have to go with -7 or -8. It's just to help you see it. I'm adding these for clarity. It's not necessary that you add all these parentheses when you're actually doing the work. Okay, we have a little geography problem or whatever it is here. Let's geology or whatever. Um, let's go with it. Example 3, a real world problem. You can use the expression minus or negative 5.5 times the quantity A divided by 1,000 to calculate the change in temperature of degrees Fahrenheit for an increase in altitude A. That's where the A comes in here, measured in feet. So a hot air balloon starts at the ground and then rises 8,000 feet. It started at the ground, we'll call that 0. Rises 8,000 feet. Find the change in temperature at the altitude of the balloon. So this equation is going to tell you how much the temperature is going to change based on where you started from. Okay, so the thing is here, we don't know where you started from, but it's going to give you the change. So it doesn't matter where you started from, 0 or whatever, 30 degrees, 50 degrees, it's still going to give you the change. It has nothing to do with the starting degrees. So the equation rewritten from above down here is negative 5.5 times the quantity A divided by 1,000. So then we did the substitution. For A, I put in 8,000. Here's the 8,000. We put it in right here. Substitute the 8. So when you do this mathematics now, we're going to divide. What are we going to divide? We're going to divide the 8,000 by 1,000. So we're going to get 5.5 times 8. And 5 times 5 times 8 is equal to 44. Well, is it negative or positive? Well, it's multiplication and division, and there's one negative sign amongst the whole thing here. So that means it's going to be negative 44. So the change in temperature from whatever the temperature was when you got in the balloon and took off, it's now negative 44 degrees Fahrenheit colder, or it's negative 44 degrees, which means it's colder. Okay? So, example 3, check your understanding. So use the order of operations to simplify each expression. Find a change in temperature if the balloon rises 4,500 feet from the ground. Okay, so what are we going to do? They want to know if it rises 45. The other problem was 8,000 feet. This one now is 4,500. That's the only difference. So we write out the equation, negative 5.5 times A divided by 1,000. That gives us negative 5.5 times 4,500 divided by 1,000. And then, of course, that would be equal to negative 5.5 times what? 4.5? 4.5? Okay, so then when you multiply that out, the answer comes out as 24.75 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, and it's negative. Remember the negative out here in front? So it's negative. So the temperature changes. It changed 44 degrees when you went 8,000 feet, but now that you're only going 4,500 feet, it changed negative 44.75 degrees Fahrenheit. So now then the second question is, suppose the temperature is 40 degrees at ground level. What is the approximate air temperature at the altitude of the balloon? Well, if it was 40 degrees when you started, all you have to do then is take your starting answer, 40 degrees, and add that to 24.75. We know what the change is going to be. And really what you're doing is you're subtracting. So you're going to take 40 and you're going to subtract 24.75, and you're going to end up with 15.25 degrees Fahrenheit, and it will be positive, because how do we know? We know that you take, when you're doing addition, when you take two different numbers of different signs, you take the largest and subtract the smallest from it. Here's your 150, your 1525, and then you take the sign of the larger number, and there it is. So the approximate temperature at the balloon will be 15.25 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, example 4, simplifying exponential expressions. The expression negative 3 to the fourth power means the opposite of 3 to the fourth power. The exponent 4 applies to the base 3. the negative sign is not part of the base. In the expression, the quantity -3, open parens, -3, close parens, to the fourth power. The negative sign is part of the base. -3. -3 is the base. And you're saying that because you've got the parentheses surrounding the entire thing. So that's the grouping symbol. The grouping means this negative sign goes with the 3. In the previous one, it's -3. The negative doesn't go with the 3. It goes with the entire problem, not the 3. Okay? So the negative sign is part of the base. The exponent 4 applies to the entire base. So use the order of operations to simplify each expression. So let's look at it. So the first one, -3 to the fourth. So I wrote it down here. We have negative. I got a white negative. See the negative? Negative times 3 to the fourth, which means negative, the quantity. That's 3 to the fourth. 3 times 3 times 3. Here, 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. 4 times 3. 3 is the base. Since we put parens on the outside, the negative side goes to the whole thing. It's -81. Now, on the other hand, if we say the parenthesis, open paren, -3, close paren to the fourth power, the quantity, -3, raised to the fourth power. Here it is. The parens go with it here, right? So it's -3 times -3 times -3 times -3 times -3. You're going to get 81 this time. And it's going to be positive because you have 4 negative signs. Okay? Look at that and make sure you understand that. You can stop the video for that. Okay, example 4, check your understanding. Simplify each expression. So let's do this. Let's just do this, okay? So right now, let's check your understanding. I'll give you some time. Go do them on your own. And then when you come back, we'll do them together. Okay, I'm going to assume you went off and did that. And we're going to do these now together. So problem A says what? -4 cubed. So what are we going to write that? We're going to say that this is negative, right? The parenthesis would go here if it's going to go anywhere. The negative sign is outside. It's not part of the base. Or you could have written it as -4 cubed with the negative sign outside. And what does that mean? 4 times 4 times 4? Well, 4 times 4 times 4 is, I'll write it, 4 times 4 times 4 is equal to 64. And this negative goes with the entire number, but after it's all multiplied. So the answer is -64. Let's do B. Now we have the quantity -2 to the fourth. Well, what is -2 to the fourth? And it's the quantity. So what is that? That means -2, -2, oops, -2, -2. And that is 4 negative signs, which is even. An even number gives you a positive number. So it's positive 16. Let's do C. The quantity, -0.3 squared. So that is -0.3 times -0.3. And that equals what? Negative times a negative is a positive, and 0.3 times 0.3 is 0.09. And how about D? Negative the quantity, 3/4 squared. Well, that is negative. I'm going to put a print here. 3/4 times 3/4. Okay, that's the squaring. So 3 times 3 is, and that's equal to -9/16. And there's your answer. That can't be reduced any further. Okay, -9/16. Okay, objective 2, dividing real numbers. So previously we've been talking about multiplying. So now let's divide. The rules for finding the sign when dividing real numbers are the same as the rules for finding the sign when multiplying real numbers. So here's the rule. Dividing numbers with the same sign. You can think about it. You can imagine what's it going to be, right? The quotient of two positive numbers or two negative numbers is positive. So in the example here, you see 6 right here. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Negative 6 divided by negative 3 is 2. Two negatives or two positives give you a positive. How about dividing numbers with different signs? The quotient of a positive number and a negative number, or a negative number and a positive number, is negative. And you already knew that. So negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. Positive 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. So negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2, and 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. So you can use the rules for dividing to simplify expressions. We'll do that in the next slide. So here we go. Example 5, dividing numbers. Simplify each expression. Here, problem A. 12 divided by the quantity negative 4 is equal to negative 3. 12 divided by 4 is 3, and there's one negative sign in there. It's a negative 3. The quotient of a positive number and a negative number is negative. Problem B. Negative 12 divided by negative 4 is equal to 3. The quotient of a negative number and a negative number is positive. So 12 divided by 4 is 3, and two negative signs gives you a positive. Positive 3. Okay, example 5, check your understanding. Simplify each expression. So why don't you go ahead and do that. Stop the video, try these, and then when you get back, we'll do them together. Okay, I'm assuming you've stopped the video and you've now returned with your answers. So let's try it. Problem A, negative 42 divided by 7. So negative 42 divided by, how's that? Divided by 7. And that equals 42 divided by 7 is what? 6. 6 times 7 is 42. And we have one negative sign, right? So a negative and a positive gives you a negative, negative 6. How about B? Negative 8 divided by negative 2. What is that? That equals 8 divided by 2 is 4. And we have two negative signs. Negative and a negative gives us a positive. So it's positive 4. I can do a positive right here. Positive 4. How about 8 divided by the quantity negative 8? Well, we have 8 divided by 8 equals 1. And we have one negative sign. Oh, 8 divided by negative 8 right there, sorry. We have one negative, which makes this a negative 1. And finally here, D, we have negative 39 divided by the quantity negative 3. Well, we can just look, is equal to what? 39 divided by 3 is 13. Then the question is, how many negative signs are there? There are an even number of negative signs. We have 2. So there, or we could say that they're both negative, both numbers are negative. So the answer here then is positive. I'll do a little positive on there. How's that? Example 6, evaluating expressions. So here we're going to be doing some of that substitution stuff. So here's it says evaluate not the quantity, but the fraction here, negative x divided by negative 4 plus 2y, or 2 times y, divided by z. For x equals negative 20, y equal to 6, and z equals to negative 1. So the first thing I did, and you should do too, always do this. It helps to write down the problem and then make sure what you wrote down is what the problem says. That way, it's one chance for you to make sure you're working on the correct problem when you're doing a test for sure. How's that? So we have negative x divided by negative 4 plus 2y divided by z. So I rewrote it over here and I did the substitution. So we have negative the quantity. Here's the quantity. Negative the quantity. And what is x? negative 20. So there's a negative 20 inside there. Divided by negative 4 plus 2 times 6. Y substitutes as 6. So here's our y value right there. 2 times 6. And z divided by z is going to be divided by what? A negative 1. So the first thing we're going to take care of is this fraction out here. So when we do that, we're going to see that negative times a negative 20, and you get this negative 4 here on the bottom. It's going to be a positive 20 divided by negative 4. You could have put a negative 20. You could have put the negative in front. It doesn't matter where you put it. That negative 4 makes the entire fraction negative. And then that's plus, and we put the parentheses around these two terms. Because why? Because we're using PEMDAS, right? And so you have to do your groupings first. Well, we did the first grouping. Right here's the first grouping, because a division bar right there is a grouping symbol. So that means you have to do that division before you go on to these pluses and stuff, right? So we did that. We got this first. We did at least started clearing the parenthesis up here. We cleared it. And now we have here, we can start clearing this. This is 12 divided by negative 1. Okay, so there's that. So now we're going to close this out. We have 20 divided by negative 4 is negative 5. And now this parenthesis here gets closed out, saying 12 divided by negative 1. Oh, we haven't closed it yet. We're going to close it here. Excuse me. So now you have negative 5 plus negative 12. 12 divided by negative 1 is negative 12. So we finally cleared all the parentheses. And because we had one negative inside these sets of parens, and we have a negative here. So doing that, this is addition. So we have negative 5 plus negative 12. The answer is negative 17. Okay. So you always make sure that when you have a positive like this, a plus sign here, and you got some fraction, that's like a group, and then you have a division here, that division is going to go with this before you do that plus. You're not going to add these two and then divide. You have to do the division of between these two, between the 12 and the negative 1, before you can work with between the fraction and those numbers, right? Okay. Okay, example 6, check your understanding. So we can go ahead, evaluate each expression for x equal to 8, y equal to the quantity negative 5, and z equal to the quantity negative 3. So go ahead and try it on your own, and I'll wait till you get back. Okay, I'm assuming you've stopped the video and you tried them and you've got your answers, and we're going to now try to work them together. Evaluate each expression. X equals 8, y is negative 5, and z is negative 3. So the first thing here's the problem. 3 for A, you have 3x divided by 2z. Oh, take that back. It's not that. You see, you can't even tell by looking at these. You got to look real close. This is plus. No, this is, wait. Oh, I'm sorry. See, they're very hard to see. That's why I say you need to write them down. 3x divided by, right here, plus y divided by 10. So there's two divisions and separated by a plus sign. So that means you're going to do everything from here to here and here to here first before you do any adding and subtracting. You have to do the multiplication and or division first. So what do we have? 3x is equal to what? So 3x is equal to 8. So 3 times 8 divided by 2 times, and z is negative 3. Negative 3 plus y, which is negative 5. I'm going to put a parenthesis around that so you don't get confused with that. Plus negative 5, and it's divided by 10. So now we'll keep working across, right? So 3 times 8 is 24, and I'm just going to do it. 24 divided by, well, I won't. 24 divided by negative 6. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Plus, and those are still going to be paren here, right? Plus, negative 5 divided by 10 is negative 1/2. Now we get down to the last step here. 24 divided by negative 6 is negative 4 plus a half, okay, plus a negative 1/2 plus a negative 1/2, and that equals negative 4 plus a negative 1/2 is negative 4 and 1/2. The negatives add, these two numbers add together, okay? That's adding the same sign. So the answer is negative 4 1/2. So let's try the next one here. We have 2z, 2 times z, and z was negative 3, plus x, and x is 8, divided by 2 times y, and y was negative 5. And I guess I should have said 2z plus x divided by 2y. I didn't do that to start. So now I've substituted. And now that I've got that, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say these have to go first. This is multiplication. This is addition here. So this is negative 6 plus 8 divided by 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. And that equals, so what is 8 plus a negative 6? So this is subtraction. 8 minus 6 is 2, and you take the sign of the larger number, which is positive. So it's positive 2 divided by 10, and that would be a negative because it's a positive divided by a negative. Negative 1, 2, and 10 give you 5, right? Negative 1/5. So I could do that too, just so you see it. It's going to be 2 divided by negative 10. And that's where you get the negative 1/5. 1/5, okay? Oh, 1/5. Don't write the 5 like a 0, like a 2. Now, I'm going to clear it up. There, now I didn't scribble it. Negative 1/5. So now let's do the next one. This one is 3z squared minus 4y divided by x. Okay? 3z squared minus 4y divided by x. So let's fill them out. The first one is we're going to have to do this exponentiation. We have to do that first, and it's z, and z is the negative 3. So we're going to write 3, and the square goes just with the z. If we had parentheses around the 3z, then we do it all, but we're just doing the z. So it's 3 times, and what is z, which again I said is negative 3? Negative 3 squared minus 4 times 5, negative 5 is y, and divided by x, which is 8. So this is this is the last thing we're going to do after we're going to do this division after we do this piece on this side first. Okay. We're going to take this negative 3 and we're going to square it. So now we're going to get 3 times 9. Okay, then it says, and I'm going to put the paren here, then it says minus 4 times, minus 4 times 5. So it's minus 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. I'm going to put the paren here, negative 20. And that's divided by 8. Okay, so we have that so far. Let's go take a little step further. Okay, so going back through these, make sure we got it right. So the first thing you have to do is the exponentiation, and we only take to the power of 2 the z, not the 3z. So it's 3 times the negative 3 squared, which is 3 times 9, and then it's minus, and we replace 4 times the y, which is negative 5. 4 times negative 20, we get the negative 4 times negative 5 is 20. okay? And we're dividing everything by 8. And when we do that, we're going to end up getting 27, right? And we have a negative 20 divided by 8 is 2.5 minus a negative 2.5, because 20 divided by 8 is 2.5. So now when we add these together, these are negative and a negative is a positive. So the answer here is going to be 27 plus 2.5 is equal to 29.5, or I mean we could write it as a fraction, however you want to write it. Doesn't really matter. It could be 29 and 1/2. Okay? Example 7, division using the reciprocal. Here's the property. Inverse property of multiplication. For every non-zero real number, in this case a, there is a multiplicative inverse, 1 divided by a, such that a times the quantity 1 divided by a equals 1. So an example, 5 times 1/5 is equal to 1. Well, what happens, right? When you look at it, the 5, this 5 here, gets divided by this 5. Because you multiply 5 times 1 is 5, 5 over 5 is 1, right? Negative 5 divided by, or times negative 1/5 is 1. 5 times, negative 5 times 1 is, we could do it that way, is negative 1. Negative 5 divided by negative 5 is 1. Negative divided by negative is positive, and 5 divided by 5 is 1. Okay? The multiplicative inverse, or the reciprocal, of a non-zero rational number, a divided by b is equal to b divided by a. All you do is flip them over. It's the multiplicative inverse, we call it. Or the reciprocal. Say multiply by, you say multiply or divide by the reciprocal, however you want to say the words. Okay, 0 does not have a reciprocal. Dividing by 0 is undefined. You can't flip it, because if you do, you end up dividing by 0, and that's undefined. So evaluate x divided by y. For x equals negative 3/4 and y equals negative 5/2. So here's two fractions, negative 3/4 and y negative 5/2, and they want you to evaluate x divided by y. So here's our x divided by y right here, okay? And I'm going to expand it out, change the format. So now it's negative 3/4 divided by, right here, negative 5/2. I'm substituting in for in x and y right here, the negative 3/4 for the x and the negative 5/2 for the y. And then the next step is to convert it to multiplication. You do that by inverting, getting the reciprocal, multiplying by the multiplicative inverse. If you're dividing by fractions, you can multiply by the multiplicative inverse. So we flipped it. Negative 5/2 becomes negative 2/5. So now, and you could have flipped either one of these. Anyways, so now we have negative 3/4 times negative 2/5. And because we multiplied by that reciprocal, so what do we have now? 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 5 is 20. 6 divided by 20 is 3 divided by 10. And it's two negatives here, so it makes a positive. Okay, example 7, check your understanding. Evaluate the expression in example 7 for x equal 8 and y equal negative 4/5. So I'm going to let you stop the video here and give it a shot. Should be pretty quick for you. Okay, so what are we going to do here? We're going to take the expression in example 7 was the x divided by y. And here we said x is 8, or 8, and we're going to divide by x divided by y, divide by y is negative 4/5. Negative 4/5 right here. We're going to divide by that. Well, instead of dividing by 4/5, we can multiply by negative 5/4. So here we have 8 times negative 5/4. We went from 8 divided by negative 4/5 to 8 times negative 5/4. And once we do that, now it's just a matter of dividing and simplifying, right? So you end up with multiplying 8 times 5. What is it? It's 8 over 1, right? Remember the fraction, right? So 8 times 5 times negative 5 over 4. So 8 times 5 is equal to negative 40, and over 4, and that'll equal to a negative 10, right? Negative 10. Negative 40 divided by 4, and negative 10 is your answer.